One morning, Kinjuru Sakamachi gets woken up by his sister Kuraha in the usual bone-breakingly violent manner. This causes him to have a nose bleed, and after complaining about it, joins her for breakfast. It turns out that Kuraha is doing this to make sure she remains in shape while their mother, an accomplished and strong wrestler, is abroad. Upon arriving at school, Kinjuru spots the most popular guy in school, Subaru, escorting the prestigious Kanade whom he serves as a butler. It is then that he meets up with his friend Yamato, who is jealous of how close Subaru is to Kanade. In school, Kinjuru is approached by a girl, which causes him to jump away in fear. Noticing that, Yamato wonders if he is not into boys, seeing that he always avoids girls as much as possible. Kinjuru quickly denies that and excuses himself, rushing towards the restroom. On the way, he bumps into another girl, which only makes his situation worse. Finally, in the restroom, he manages to recompose himself. But when he opens up the stall door, he ends up being face-to-face with Subaru, who is just getting up from the toilet. What immediately catches his attention is the fact that Subaru is wearing girly panties. Reasoning that he must be a pervert, Kinjuru turns to leave, but is quickly followed by Subaru. Since Kinjuru saw his panties, Subaru decides to clobber him hard enough to make sure he forgets everything about it. However, Kinjuru was well conditioned by his family, so Subaru's attack fails to knock him out. Seeing that Subaru is serious, he starts running away and a chase ensues. The two of them end up in an abandoned classroom, where by chance a large glass jar gets tipped over and falls towards Subaru's head. Spotting it in time, Kinjuru jumps to push him out of the way. As he does, he finds himself on top of Subaru, who is knocked over and his clothes have been undone in the scuffle. At that moment, Kinjuru notices that his hand is groping something very soft, as he has ended up cupping Subaru's chest. The moment Kinjuru realizes that Subaru is a girl, he jumps back and starts bleeding from his nose. Thinking that he must be a pervert who felt her up and got a nosebleed from it, Subaru becomes more determined than ever to shut him up for good. Grabbing a nearby fire extinguisher, Subaru throws it at Kinjuru, knocking him out on the spot. When he comes to, Kinjuru finds himself in the nurse's office, chained to the bed. Next to him, he discovers none other than Kanade. She tells him that it was her who brought him here and chained him to the bed, after bribing the school nurse to leave him alone. Right now, she is still trying to figure out what to do with him, seeing that he discovered her butler's secret. It turns out Subaru's family has served Kanades for many generations, but with this generation, there was no male heir on Subaru's side, so she has decided to pretend to be a guy in order to be Kanade's butler and stay by her side. Kanade's father decided to allow it, under the condition that Subaru's true identity is never discovered. Pulling the curtain of the adjacent bed, Kanade reveals a tide of Subaru, who is in a similar predicament as Kinjuru. Unfortunately for Kinjuru, Subaru is still determined to make him disappear in order to keep the secret safe and remain Kanade's butler. But Kanade comes up with an alternative and starts teasing Kinjuru, quickly discovering his secret, namely that he gets nosebleeds every time he is in close contact with a girl. In order to smooth things over, Kanade offers to help Kinjuru get over his phobia of girls, and in exchange he will keep the secret safe. With little choice left, Kinjuru decides to accept the deal in order to save his skin. The following day, he gets woken up by his sister in the usual manner. But when he enters the bathroom, much to his surprise, he discovers a naked Subaru getting out of the shower. Apparently, she is going to accompany him to school from now on in order to make sure he keeps the secret, and she is quick to pummel him for walking in on her. Back in school, Yamato warns Kinjuru that he has become a target of Subaru's fan club, the members of which are upset that he spends so much time with him lately. Although Kinjuru dismisses the warning at first, it soon becomes apparent that it is quite accurate, as a member of the fan club tries to assault him. Luckily for him, members from a different Subaru fan club intervene in time to save him. At first, Kinjuru is relieved to get help from them, but this quickly changes when he learns that they firmly believe how he and Subaru are a couple and wonder who is the dominant one. Kanade is aware of everything that is going on, so to make it up for Kinjuru, she gives him a special service ticket, which he can redeem with Subaru to get her to obey any command from him. When he hears that Subaru would do anything for him, he cannot help but get lewd thoughts. The following day, Kinjuru is shocked to be called to the arcade together with Subaru. It turns out Kanade wants the two of them to go out on a date in order to work on his nosebleed problem. Although confused at first, Kinjuru is not against the idea, surprised by how cute Subaru is when she wears girly clothes. Since she never visited an arcade before, Kinjuru shows her around and wins a cute sheep plush toy for her. Later, Kinjuru reveals that his nosebleeds started because his mother and sister used him as a punching bag in order to train their martial arts since he was very young, and they would only stop once his nose started bleeding. Subaru reassures him that he will surely get over his predicament, but a wholesome interaction is interrupted by Kanade, who calls Subaru and orders her to start with the next step of the plan. Subaru obeys and starts to tease Kinjuru, getting closer and closer to him. Per Kanade's instructions, Kinjuru then reveals the service ticket he has. Although surprised, Subaru has no choice but to obey any order from him. When Kinjiro realizes that she will truly do anything he tells her to, his thoughts become lewd, but he clears his head and instead orders her to make a sheep-like sound. Subaru reluctantly follows the order, and to pay him back for the embarrassment, she decides to give him a hug. At that moment, Kiraha jumps out of the nearby bush and kicks Kinjiro. She was following him all the while and believes that Subaru is a cross-dresser involved in an intimate relationship with her brother. Outraged, she demands that Subaru returns her brother to her and picks a fight with her. But much to her surprise, Subaru retaliates and sends her flying. Defeated and upset, Kiraha runs back home in tears. This ends their date, and when Kinjiro returns home, he finds that Kiraha took her frustrations out on her plush toy, so he takes his time to stitch it back together. The following day, when Subaru comes to pick Kinjiro up for school, Kiraha avoids her without a word, still unable to get over the incident, as Kinjiro did not reveal the truth to her. In school, the time has come for the yearly body measurements. This worries Kinjiro, seeing that Subaru will be checked in front of other guys, so he wonders what her plan is. But it turns out that Kanade will not help out this time around, as she wants to see how the two of them will overcome that together. When Kinjiro notices that Subaru does not actually have a proper plan to avoid being discovered, he jumps in front of the nurse and insists that he will be taking Subaru's measurements instead. The confused nurse agrees to it, but then Kinjiro's turn comes around and he is quickly reminded of his own little predicament. In order to help him avoid contact with another girl, Subaru jumps in and returns the favor by insisting that she will measure him instead. This quickly gains the attention of the other guys present in the room, even more so when Kinjiro tries to take control of the next part of the examination as well. Running out of reasonable ideas, he suddenly hugs Subaru, which causes his nosebleed to trigger and he passes out. Thanks to that, the two of them are excused from the rest of the physical examination. When Kinjiro comes back to his senses, he is surprised to have Subaru invite him to have lunch together. Much to his dismay, this only causes the Subaru fan club to become even more upset with him. While eating lunch together, Subaru reveals that she has not been able to gain any friends in school to have lunch with, considering that she was always only by Kanade's side, so she is glad that she can consider him a friend. Finally being able to drop her guard and relax next to someone else, Subaru's exhaustion from this very eventful day catches up with her and she falls asleep, leaning onto his shoulder. When Kinjiro returns home, another surprise catches him off guard. Namely, his sister declares that she has fallen in love with Subaru after their fight. When Subaru comes to pick up Kinjiro so they can walk to school together, he happens to see Kiraha walking out of the bath. Because of that, she follows Kinjiro to school and spies on him when he meets up with Kanade to tell her what happened. Kanade quickly spots Kiraha spying on them, but instead of revealing the truth, she tells Kiraha that she is in a relationship with Kinjiro, and that Subaru is also in love with him, which completely shocks Kiraha. To give her lies some credibility, she reveals where Kinjiro's birthmark is on his body, which is enough to convince her. Using the excuse that Kiraha might become her little sister in the future, Kanade invites them to a double date at the water park. Arriving at the water park, they immediately notice how seriously Subaru is taking his role to protect Kanade. After they change into their swimming suits, Kiraha asks Subaru to teach her how to swim in order to get some alone time with her, leaving Kanade and Kinjiro by themselves. Kanade uses that chance to tell him how she and Subaru got kidnapped in this place when they were kids. Although the situation was resolved without any issues thanks to the police, Subaru has distanced herself from Kanade, feeling responsible for being unable to protect her as her butler. This has also caused Subaru to develop a phobia similar to the one Kinjiro is facing. But instead of elaborating more, Kanade drags Kinjiro along to all sorts of water slides, forcefully tackling his phobia head-on. Once they are done, they swap partners, so Kinjiro and Subaru end up alone together. While casually chatting, they spot a girl drowning in one of the pools. Without wasting any time, Kinjiro jumps into the pool and saves the girl. However, her clinging to him causes another intense nosebleed to hit him, and he loses consciousness. While unconscious, he dreams of a conversation he had with his late father, when he taught him to be someone reliable so he can confidently tell someone important to him to stand by his side and protect them. When he comes to it, he sees Subaru watching over him. Suddenly, they are interrupted by a kid delivering a phone to Subaru. The phone rings, revealing a masked individual showing them that he has kidnapped Kanade and Kiraha. He wants Subaru to come to a designated location nearby without alerting the police. To show he means business, he pulls out a large knife before ending off the call. Kinjiro notices that Subaru is acting completely distraught after she spotted the knife, so he figures that this must be what Kanade meant before. In order to avoid Subaru having to face the armed kidnapper in that state, Kinjiro suddenly knocks her out and goes to the meeting point on his own. Arriving at the destination, the kidnapper wastes no time after revealing himself and starts beating Kinjiro up, stating that he will use his as entertainment until Subaru gets there. Thanks to all the pummeling Kinjiro has taken from his family, he is able to endure long enough for Subaru to arrive and save him before he is finished off. Despite the kidnapper's large knife, Subaru is able to fight back to protect Kinjiro, overcoming her phobia as she knocks the masked villain out. But when she saves Kanade and Kiriha from where they were held captive, it is revealed that the masked kidnapper is none other than Subaru's own father. This all has been a ploy set up by Kanade to help Subaru overcome her fear and get closer to her again at the same time. All of the beating has taken its toll on Kinjiro, and he passes out yet again. When he wakes up, he finds himself in Kanade's manor. Kanade apologizes for putting him through this and thanks him for helping out at the same time, revealing that Subaru was actually her first love, so she was desperate to get close to her again. Once she takes her leave, Subaru enters the room. Instead of being angry at him for knocking her out, she gives him a hug and reveals how worried she was about losing him to the kidnapper. After all, he is the very first friend she managed to make. Realizing how much he worried Subaru, Kinjiro apologizes, remembering his father's words and promising to himself that he will get stronger, so she will never cry again because of him. At that moment, Kiriha enters the room and spots them being close, so she immediately assumes that her brother is trying to seduce Subaru, even though he is already going out with Kanade. When Subaru hears that Kinjiro is in a relationship with Kanade, she flips out as well, so Kinjiro decides to make a fast getaway through the window. The Golden Week has begun and Kinjiro is all alone at home, with Kiriha being away on a trip. He is excited to be finally able to eat some trashy food, as his sister is not there to complain about it. Suddenly, he hears the doorbell ring, and when he opens the door is Subaru asking to be allowed to stay at his place and be his butler. Calling Kanade, Kinjiro learns that Subaru cannot stay at their place for the time being, so her request is genuine. Confused, Kinjiro wants to know more, but hearing Subaru's belly rumbling, he decides to let her in so they can eat first. After they are done with breakfast, Subaru wants to introduce herself to his parents and is shocked to learn that his mother is overseas and sister is away on a trip, as that means that they will be all by themselves. Her shock state is quickly changed when she hears that he plans to go back to sleep, and instead she wants to correct his lazy attitude. Over on the trip, Kiriha runs into a wild bear and decides to fight it head-on. Meanwhile, Kinjiro gets thrown around by Subaru in their dojo, and once they are done, Kinjiro suggests they should take a bath. Much to his surprise, Subaru walks in after him, determined to do her duty as his butler and wash his back. Although embarrassed, Kinjiro does not protest and allows her to do as she wishes, but when she slips and falls onto him, he gets another nosebleed. At that moment, Kiriha returns home unexpectedly, revealing that she broke her arm while fighting the bear, so she was sent back. While talking to him through the door, she spots girls' underwear in the laundry basket, so she becomes very suspicious and forces her way into the bath. Subaru manages to jump into the bath just in time to hide her feminine features, so when Kiriha breaks in, her true identity remains a secret. However, spotting her beloved Subaru in the bath causes Kiriha to faint. After recovering, she completely changes her mannerism to appear more feminine and in line with what Subaru likes, pinching Kinjiro to make sure he does not reveal anything about her violent side. Suddenly, Kanade appears wearing a maid's uniform and announces that she will be serving as his maid from here on out as well. But Kinjiro cannot handle her in the house, so he immediately throws her out, using the excuse that he already has a butler looking after him. Taking that as a challenge, Kanade decides to have a showdown against Subaru to determine which servant should remain in Kinjiro's home. Suddenly, during the showdown, Kinjiro collapses, which sends Kiriha into a panic, worrying that he's going to die just like their father did. Once they have him nice and comfortable in the bed, Kanade reasons that it must be a cold considering he has a slight fever. When he comes to, Subaru does her best to nurse him back to health. But by doing so, she goes way overboard and only makes things harder for his exhausted body. When they have a moment on their own, Kanade reveals that she has come to actually bring Subaru back home. It turns out Subaru has been at odds with her father since he beat Kinjiro up the other day. Since Kanade's father got fed up with their Cold War, he kicked both of them out of the mansion until they make up. In order to do so, she brings Kinjiro to the tent where Subaru's father is staying so he can forgive him and help her get Subaru back to the mansion. But when Kinjiro confronts Subaru's father, they only end up arguing and Subaru shows up grabbing Kinjiro by the hand and dragging him back to the house. When her father tries to stop her, she tells him that she hates him, refusing to even look at him. Seeing that Kinjiro stops her, insisting that she is taking it too far, and that the beating he took was not that serious in the first place, so she should already forgive her father. Still, Subaru refuses to leave his side, telling him how worried she got when she saw how Kiriha reacted to him collapsing, realizing that his father must have passed away suddenly, just like her mother. At that moment, Kinjiro's cold takes its toll again, and he collapses. Just as he is struggling to remain conscious, he sees Subaru crying out of worry, so he forces himself back onto his feet, reassuring her that he will not die that easily, so she does not need to worry about him so much. This calms her down a bit, and when he passes out from the fever, she calmly carries him back to bed. Back in school, Subaru reprimands him for not resting properly and allowing her to nurse him back to health. But despite that, she is satisfied with his promise to not die on her. Although she wants to spend more time with him, she needs to return home. As it turns out, her father caught a cold as well, so she is now nursing him. Once Subaru leaves, Kanade comes out and thanks Kinjiro for helping smooth things over between Subaru and her father. Since she found the way he handled himself despite the sickness quite cool, she rewards him with a kiss, which starts yet another nosebleed. On his way to school, Kinjiro gets run over by a girl on a scooter. She gets quite the shock when she notices that he's completely unharmed despite the impact. Kinjiro quickly realizes that she attends the same school as he does, but she refuses to introduce herself. Spotting that his glasses have flown off in between her thighs, he tries to get them back, but she thinks that he wants to do something lewd and fights back instead. In the scuffle, the glasses go flying and she figures out what he was truly after. But instead of calming down, she recognizes him as Kira's brother and strikes him down. It seems that she has a grudge against him because he became friends with Subaru. She introduces herself as Masamune, a member of the same club as Kiraha, and proceeds to promptly knock him out. When he comes to, he finds himself in the school nurse's office, with Subaru watching over him. It turns out she saw him unconscious on the way to school and brought him in. Going with the story that he got run over, he reassures Subaru that he is okay. Relieved, Subaru wonders why Kinjiro is avoiding Kanade since the end of the Golden Week. Remembering the kiss, Kinjiro decides to keep it a secret after all. While Kinjiro is thinking what to say, Subaru wonders if he would like to accompany her during the upcoming school festival. He quickly accepts, telling her that there is no reason to fret about it so much, and decides to bring up what is bothering him, revealing that it is his first kiss. Although he is referring to the kiss he shared with Kanade, Subaru thinks that her mistress revealed the fact that she did mouth-to-mouth breathing when he fainted inside of the pool at the water park. When he mentions that he would like to redo it, Subaru gives in and presents herself, puckering her lips for a kiss. While Kinjiro is still trying to figure out what is going on, Kanade bursts in and interrupts them. Kinjiro tries to get away quickly, but she jumps on top of him and makes sure he cannot move, forcing him to hear that for the school festival, their class will be doing a cross-dressing cafe, which will allow Subaru to come to school dressed as a girl. This happens to be something Subaru is quite excited about, and Kinjiro is looking forward to it too. On his way back to the classroom, Kinjiro runs into Masamune and she calls him up to the roof so they can talk in private. It is there that she asks him to be her boyfriend until the end of the school festival. It turns out she is a member of the Subaru fan club, and they will be waging war with the other fan club that supports boy love at the festival. In order to throw them off, she wants them to see her together with Kinjiro, as he is believed to be Subaru's boyfriend. If he refuses, she will spread the picture of Subaru dressed as a girl, which she took in secret when they had their date at the arcade. While on the other hand, she will make sure that the Subaru fan club stops going after him if he goes along with it. Realizing that this might expose Subaru and ruin her future, as Kanade's butler Kinjiro agrees. At that moment, Subaru comes up to the roof, worried because Kinjiro has not returned to class yet. Masamune quickly hides behind Kinjiro's back, too timid to talk to Subaru directly. Kinjiro explains that the girl with him is his new girlfriend, which Masamune confirms when Subaru confronts her directly, adding that Kinjiro will be going out with her during the school festival. Hearing that, Subaru explodes in a rage, calling Kinjiro a liar and pummels him before storming off. Afterwards, Masamune takes Kinjiro shopping with her, forcing him to buy a swimsuit for her, as that is her classroom's theme for the festival. This causes them to argue, and Kinjiro ends up falling into the changing booth, catching Masamune mid-changing. In the end, he buys the swimsuit for her, and even walks her home when he hears that she does not even have enough money to buy the train ticket. On the way home, she reminds him that for the short while now they are a couple, so she wants him to trust her no matter what. Although confused, Kinjiro goes along with it and promises that he will trust her. With preparations for the school festival in full swing, everyone seems to be very excited about it. That is everyone except for Subaru. The time for the festival comes and Subaru is a big hit, wearing a traditional Chinese dress, although she cannot truly enjoy herself due to what happened with Kinjiro. Meeting up with Masamune, Kinjiro lets her take the lead, and they end up getting some snacks from the stands. Feeling guilty about it, she offers to make some proper home cooking for him in the future, which he accepts. Just as she is about to feed him a snack, Subaru jumps out, declaring that as his friend, she will make sure that nothing untoward happens. From there on out, both Subaru and Masamune cling tightly to Kinjiro, which only makes things harder for him. They end up walking into Kira's classroom, which has an animal cafe theme. Their Masamune cannot help but feel horrible, as everyone but her is having fun. In the end, she sends Kinjiro away, telling him to forget about their deal and go have fun with Subaru instead. After he leaves her table, Kinjiro is dragged away by a sheep mascot. The mascot is none other than Nakuru, a fellow Subaru Boy Love fan club member. She tries to warn him about the upcoming battle between the fan clubs, stating how he is in danger if the other club wins. In addition to that, she reveals that Masamune has been lying to him, as she does not hold sufficient authority to control the fan club. Just then, Masamune jumps in and knocks her out. Wondering if that was the truth, Kinjiro questions her about it, but instead of answering him, she suddenly strikes towards him. Luckily for him, Subaru jumps in and protects him, which causes Masamune to run away in tears. Subaru wants to figure out what is going on, so he questions Nakuru when she comes to her senses. Thanks to her, they find the location of the battle between the two fan clubs, where it is revealed that the leader of the violent one is none other but Kanade. Kinjiro is so outraged by that he screams out in anger, which blows their cover. But Kanade protects him from the angry mob by reminding them that fighting will come after the showdown ends. The showdown in question happens to be a trivia quiz about Subaru, which both Subaru and Kinjiro join on the side of the boys' love club, seeing that this is the one against violence. But the battle is tough and the scores are almost tied. The final question being the decisive factor, Kanade asks for the name of the person who was Subaru's first kiss. Begging Subaru to help him out so he does not get lynched by the angry mob afterwards, Kinjiro convinces her to reveal the identity of her first kiss. However, this backfires when the big reveal is none other than Kinjiro himself. Since he does not remember it, Kanade sheds some light on the situation and plays the recording of their interaction. It turns out that when he was unconscious at the water park, Subaru gave him mouth-to-mouth breathing, which ended up being her first kiss. Even though this decides the victory for the boys' love club, the other club is too angry at Kinjiro to remain put, and they start going at him with murderous intent. In order to save his skin, Kinjiro quickly confesses that the girl he loves is actually Kanade. In return, she's quick to reject him and walk away. This confuses the angry mob, who feel too awkward to mess with the guy who just got publicly rejected. Kinjiro quickly follows after Kanade, thanking her for going along with his improvised plan, while Subaru is left behind feeling quite bad about everything that has happened. Outside, she scolds him for making such a fake public confession, as it is rather hurtful to her. So as punishment, she gives him an intimate hug and whispers that she loves him straight into his ear, which starts a flood of blood down his nose in response. After composing himself, Kinjiro wonders why Masamune was not present back there, to which Kanade reveals that she actually resigned from the club just before the festival. Wondering what is going through her head, Kinjiro quickly dashes away, heading straight to Masamune's favorite spot, the school, the roof. Sure enough, he finds her there moping all by herself. She confesses to everything, revealing that she wanted to get close to Subaru, because he seemed to be a lone wolf, much like herself. But then Subaru changed when he started hanging out with him, even becoming more girly. She wanted to find out if she would be able to change as well, but in the end she just ended up hating herself more. Hearing that, Kinjiro reminds her that the festival is not over yet, and that means that they are still a couple, so he takes her away to enjoy the finale together with her. There, Kinjiro tells her how he would like to taste the cooking she promised to do for him sometime, which stirs Masamune out of her self-deprecating state. Subaru and Kanade also find their way to them, and Subaru apologizes for the harsh treatment she gave to Kinjiro before. Kanade has explained everything that happened, the blackmailing part, as well as the fake confession part, and now Subaru feels grateful to Kinjiro for going so far to cover for her. Masamune tries to use that chance to sneak away, but Kinjiro stops her, giving her a proper introduction to Subaru and calling her his friend. Subaru quickly states that any friend of Kinjiro is a friend of her as well, finally breaking the ice between her and Masamune. This proves to be exactly what Masamune needed, and from that day on she becomes a more cheerful person, as she finally managed to make some friends. The summer vacation is in full swing and Kinjiro is on his way home when he bumps into Subaru. She offers him a drink, which he gladly accepts before suddenly inviting him to elope with her. Before he can figure out what is going on, he starts feeling drowsy. Subaru reassures him that everything will be okay, but that she cannot go against the orders of her mistress. Realizing that he was just drugged, Kinjiro is unable to fight back the drowsiness and falls asleep. When he finally wakes up, he finds Kanade watching over him. It turns out she has kidnapped him to her family's luxurious hot spring beach resort inn. Due to an argument with her parents, she decided to flee from home, so right now she is staying here in secret. And to make sure their stay is secret, she told the staff that they are eloping. So naturally they will be sleeping together during their stay here. This makes Kinjiro nervous, and when Subaru comes to fetch Kanade, she becomes upset at how close they were to each other. Later on the beach, Kinjiro is pleasantly surprised to see Subaru in a cute bikini, which was picked specifically for her by Kanade herself. In order to treat his phobia, Kanade has Kinjiro apply sunscreen to her body, during which she continues to produce loud, lewd sounds, attracting quite a bit of attention from the other beachgoers. This makes Subaru upset again, so Kinjiro decides it is time to escape and goes to grab some drinks from the nearby beach restaurant. Much to his surprise, he finds Masamune, Kiraha, and Nakiru working there as waitresses. It turns out they were on a trip with their club, but they got separated thanks to a run-in with a shark, so they ended up stranded here. Since all of their belongings are with their upperclassmen, they are working here to earn some cash. At that moment, Subaru and Kane walk in, but Kinjiro reacts quickly enough to drag the two of them out of sight before they are spotted by everyone. Quickly placing a pair of glasses given to him by Nakiru on Subaru, Kinjiro manages to disguise her before Kira comes around the corner. Although Kira quickly figures out that the girl with the glasses looks exactly like Subaru, Kanade convinces her that she is, in fact, Sabura's cousin. Going along with that story, they meet up with the rest of the group. Masamune instantly realizes that the girl is none other than Subaru, so she drags Kinjiro to the side to talk to him in private. Luckily, she thinks that Subaru is just going to the extreme of cross-dressing. Instead, she wonders why Kinjiro is staying here at Kanade's place. At that moment, Kanade comes around the corner and reveals that the two of them are eloping, stating that he is her fiancé. This shocks Masamune, but she refuses to believe it, stating that she is Kinjiro's friend and would have known about it. To prove her point, she starts telling her how they went to her place to taste her cooking and how they rubbed bodies together. Subaru walks in just at the moment to overhear that and drops her drink and sock, before turning and running away. Kinjiro quickly chases after her, while Kanade stops Masamune from chasing as well. When he catches up with Subaru, Kinjiro reveals that he was indeed at her place, because of the promise they made at the festival. But the rubbing part was a misunderstanding, as she forced herself against him to try and cure his phobia. Subaru quickly delivers a punch to reprimand him for allowing that to happen, but is relieved to hear that there is nothing more going on between him and Masamune. When they return to the rest of the group, they find Masamune begging Kanade on her knees to allow her to stay in the inn. After enjoying the little show, Kanade allows everyone to stay at her place. Just then, Sabura's father makes his appearance, demanding that she and Kanade return home at once. In order to maintain the deception around Subaru, they keep insisting that she is Sabura's cousin, which confuses her old man so much he gets knocked out. In the evening, Nakiru presents one of the special service tickets she acquired from Kanade to Subaru, requesting that she reads a book out loud. The book in question is a boy love light novel written by Nakiru herself, with the main characters being Subaru and Kinjiro. Although she follows the rules at first, the erotic nature of the novel becomes too much to bear, and she throws it out the window. Waking up in the middle of the night, Kinjiro is startled because he is surrounded by barely dressed, sleeping girls. Unable to relax, he decides to take a dip in the hot spring. It is there that he runs into Subaru. They exchange a few awkward words before deciding to get out of the bath. But just then, Sabura's father enters as well. To make sure he does not see the two of them taking a bath together, Subaru hides behind Kinjiro, completely obscuring her from view. Her father asks Kinjiro what his intentions are with his daughter, to which Kinjiro quickly responds that they are just friends, nothing more, nothing less. This seems to upset Subaru, but she remains quiet. Getting annoyed by looking at Kinjiro's face, Sabura's father decides to exit early, but just as the two of them think that they are in the clear, he suddenly bursts back in. It turns out he spotted Sabura's underwear in the changing room, and not giving Kinjiro a chance to explain himself, lunges towards him. Subaru quickly responds, jumping from her cover and knocking out her father with her memory erasing technique. This causes her to completely expose her nude frame to Kinjiro, so she quickly delivers the same treatment to him as well. In the morning, neither Kinjiro nor Sabura's father remember anything about what happened during the night. Later in the evening, Subaru pretends to be her cousin again so she can wear a yukata and take part in the summer festival with everyone else. However, Kinjiro does not get a chance to spend any time with her, as Kanade pulls him away, followed in step by Masamune, who does not want to let Kanade have him for herself. The two of them end up competing in the festival's mini-games when Kinjiro realizes that Subaru is missing from the group. Kanade reveals where she went and sends him in the right direction. On his way, he runs into Sabura's father. Although he is annoyed by Kinjiro and wants to send him away, when Kinjiro insists that he is her friend, he relents and reveals that this is the way to his late wife's grave. The anniversary of her death is coming up, so Subaru came to pay her respects. And the real reason why Kanade did not go on a vacation with her parents is because she would have to bring Subaru along, which would stop her from visiting the grave. At that moment, Kanade arrives and sends Sabura's father on an errand to get him off of Kinjiro's back, allowing him to go see Subaru. When he finally finds Subaru, she is surprised to see him and has trouble holding back her tears. She tells him that her mother was always worried about her, since she could not make any friends. So she wanted to introduce him to her as her first friend, but since she passed away, that is no longer possible. Seeing the state she is in, Kinjiro powers through his phobia and gives her a comforting hug, telling her that she can still introduce him. Thankful for his kind words, Subaru manages to calm down and introduce him to her mother's grave. Just in time too, as Kinjiro reaches his limit and faints, When he comes to, the time for the great battle royale of the summer festival has arrived. Since Subaru won the Yukata Beauty Contest, she's going to give a kiss to whoever wins the battle royale. Hearing that, Kinjiro decides it is best if he wins, so he quickly gets ready for the battle. But things do not go his way, with Nakuru suddenly stripping everyone she comes across as she got drunk on some carbonated beverages. While he is busy with Nakuru, Kanade suddenly shows up, revealing that she already took out everyone else who is participating. And with a little trick, she manages to take out both Nakuru and Kinjiro, thus winning the battle royale and getting a kiss from Subaru herself. When Kinjiro recovers from Kanade's knockout hug, he finds himself resting on Subaru's lap. Glad that things turned out the way they did, Kinjiro watches the fireworks together with her, reassuring her that they will be friends forever. But much to his surprise, Subaru suddenly stands up and declares that she does not want them to stay just friends. Kinjiro finds himself working part-time in a maid cafe together with Masamune. It turns out that he was behind on summer homework and in need of funds after the time spent at Kanade's, and so Masamune helped him out with both of these things. He was quite surprised to learn that she likes working in a place like this, but she reveals that she actually quite likes the maid uniforms. Their manager quickly comes to the conclusion that Masamune and Kinjiro are a couple, but Kinjiro corrects her misunderstanding, stating that they are just friends. During his break, Kinjiro thinks back on what Subaru said, but before he can put his thoughts together, he is called to serve another customer. Surprisingly, the customer in question is none other than Kanade, who has spotted him and Masamune working here and decided to rent them out for the whole day, while ditching Subaru just to see her scramble around in a panic. And so she starts by ordering food complete with full maid service, determined to experience everything the cafe has to offer. Meanwhile, Subaru is mistaken for a worker at a butler cafe, so she is snatched to help out with work. Just as Masamune finishes serving the meal to Kanade, Kiraha and Nakuru enter the cafe as well. It turns out that they are also here to be part-time help, and are equally surprised to see Masamune and Kinjiro already working there. On the other hand, Subaru is admired by the butlers in the other cafe since her skills are unmatchable. Unfortunately, she has to work a lot in order to pay for the damages she caused when trying to escape earlier. Kanade wins a fighting video game against Kiraha, receiving even more maid service. When she wonders what else she can get them to do, Kinjiro decides he has had enough and starts heading back to the kitchen, where he will wash some dishes. But on his way, he trips and falls straight onto Masamune, pulling down her dress and grabbing a hold of her chest. This causes him to get overwhelmed by his phobia and he faints. When he recovers, the manager wonders if everything's okay with him. Not wanting to expose his phobia to her, Kinjiro tries to come up with an excuse, but it is Kanade who comes up with yet another lie to keep the truth well hidden, explaining that he has a huge maid fetish, which causes all of the girls there to panic, thinking how they were working together with a pervert. Kinjiro tries hard to convince them that this is not true, but in the end, Kanade decides that the only way he can prove his innocence is if he does not get turned on by Masamune exposing her maid garter belt to him. Although reluctant, Masamune eventually caves into the pressure placed upon her by Kanade, and she exposes herself to him. Just then, Subaru enters the cafe, relieved that she finally managed to track Kanade down. The two of them leave immediately, but Kinjiro chases after them, trying to chat with Subaru for a bit. Kanade decides to give them some time alone by making a phone call instead. Kinjiro brings up what Subaru said before, wondering what she meant by wanting to be more than friends. Flustered, Subaru elaborates that what she meant was for them to be the best of friends. Hearing that, Kinjiro is relieved and he gladly agrees to call her his best friend. With that said, Subaru still does not feel truly happy about it, but it is time to leave and she rushes after Kanade. Subaru wonders what the phone call was about, and Kanade tells her that she had to clear up the misunderstanding she caused about Kinjiro. Returning back to the cafe for the end of the shift, Kinjiro has another run-in with Masamune, who accidentally reveals just how much she values him as a friend. Kanade finds a group of geeks playing adult games on school grounds during summer break, so she tasks them with creating a game in record time. After applying some of her deceitful charms, she is able to convince them to work their hardest in order to get it done in time. Everyone else seems to be preparing in anticipation of a certain day. When the day in question dawns, Kiraha wakes up full of energy. She immediately heads for Kinjiro's room, but when she finds him still asleep, she decides to head out on her own instead, allowing him to sleep in. When he wakes up, he finds the note she left behind telling him that she will be back in the evening. The reason for everyone's excitement becomes evident when Kiraha arrives at Masamune's apartment, where Masamune and Nakuru are throwing a birthday party for her. While they enjoy the food prepared by Masamune, she tells them a spooky ghost story about her apartment being haunted, which scares Kiraha. But the fear is quickly dispelled when they give her the birthday gifts, which include a life-size Subaru body pillow, as well as a live performance of Nakuru's steam novel. But when Nakuru makes things too intense for Masamune, she calls it quits and tosses her to the side. However, the birthday party is only just beginning. It turns out that Kanane has rented out the entire maid cafe from the other day just for them, allowing them to throw a private party there. After everyone apart from Kira gets changed into maid uniforms, they present her with the birthday cake and sing for her. This makes Kira remember how Kinjiro was always there to make sure she is happy for her previous birthdays, mentioning the wonderful memories she has had with him to everyone, although she was always repaying his kindness with wrestling violence. Kanade also reveals that the game she had the geeks work on is a fighting game, featuring all of them as playable characters, and they have a blast playing it. Kanade and Subaru give Kira a ride home when the party is over. During the ride, she reveals that on her last birthday, Kinjiro completely forgot about it and went out to the theater with his friend instead. When he came back home, she gave him a violent greeting, properly roughing him up for forgetting about his little sister. But despite that, he was always there for her for every other important day in her life, to support and encourage her. And thanks to everyone, she already had an amazing birthday this year, so even if he forgot again, it would not hurt her so much. But when she returns home, she is in for another surprise as Kinjiro has prepared a big present for her as well. After what happened last year, he promised to himself that he will never again make his beloved little sister so sad again. So this time he got her a large plush, which she can use to practice her killer moves on. The second semester has begun, but Subaru seems to be out of it. To try and find out what is wrong and if her relationship with Kinjiro is to blame, Kanade questions her while changing, but upon not getting any response, she decides to try a different approach. Kira gives Kinjiro the usual wake-up call, and when he gets ready to head out to school, Subaru is already there waiting on him. Even though Subaru now trusts that Kinjiro will not reveal her true identity, she still regrets that she was unable to cure his phobia, so from here on out Kanane will be increasing the intensity of their training. Suddenly, Masamune rushes in on her scooter, almost crashing into them, but Subaru protects Kinjiro by pushing him out of the way. In the process, she ends up on top of him, which reminds him of the kiss they shared. As an apology, Masamune gives them the leftovers of her breakfast toast before rushing to get to school in time. In school, Kanade invites Kinjiro and Subaru to eat lunch with her, which they happily agree to. During lunch, she treats them to a delicious bento box. But just as they dig in, Subaru starts acting strangely. It turns out Kanade put a tiny amount of wine in the food, which is more than enough to get Subaru tipsy. In her intoxicated state, Subaru starts clinging to Kinjiro and licking his neck, where Kanade smeared some sauce before. This causes Kinjiro's nose to start bleeding, so he does his best to try and calm Subaru down and get out of the predicament, reminding her that they are best friends, so they should not do something like that, but that only makes Subaru upset. Luckily for him, Subaru ends up passing out from the alcohol, so he carries her over to the nurse's office before returning to the classroom. In the classroom, Kanade suddenly starts having very cute hiccups, which sound like she is making cat noises. Noticing that she is very embarrassed about them, Kinjiro pretends that he is the one making those sounds in front of their classmates, shifting the focus on him and allowing them to head for the nurse's office as well. Their Kanade bribes the nurse to leave them alone and thanks Kinjiro for covering for her. Subaru regains her senses in the nearby bed and elaborates how Kanade's cute hiccups are cursed, as just hearing them can cause people to act up. This is so serious that she has caused incidents in the past, which needed the police to intervene and save the day. Suddenly, Subaru gets affected by her cute hiccups as well, so Kanade sends her back home so she can fetch the tools they need to help stop the hiccups. But as it turns out, Kanade just wanted Subaru to leave so she could have some private time with Kinjiro. The moment they are alone, she throws him onto the bed and gets on top of him, using her body to tease him and make him reveal what happened between him and Subaru recently. But Kinjiro does not give in, and instead he manages to escape. Just as he runs out of the nurse's office, he runs into Subaru, who has recovered the special tools in record time and was already on her way back. But as it turns out, the tools were not needed at all, as Kanade had faked the entire thing in order to get the information she desired. Just as she is teasing Kinjiro about it, Kanade trips and falls down the stairs. Subaru quickly jumps after her in an attempt to protect her, but she is too slow and Kanade ends up spraining her ankle. She is taken to the hospital owned by her family, where Subaru keeps apologizing for failing her as a butler. Even though Kanade is not upset at her, Subaru cannot help but feel responsible for it. Seeing how much this bothers her, Kinjiro tries to comfort her, but just then her father shows up. He declares that Subaru has been removed from her position as Kanade's butler, and from here on out does no longer need to hide her true identity and instead live a normal life as a high school girl. Despite her injury, Kanade appears and promises that she will overturn that decision, as she does not want any other butler but Subaru. Hearing that, Subaru stops her and apologizes for not living up to her expectations, stating how serving her made her extremely happy before running off alone. Kinjiro gives chase and eventually catches up with her. Powering through his phobia, he gives her a hug and offers to be outlet for her frustrations so she can return and continue being Kanade's butler. Hearing that makes Subaru happy, but instead of doing so, she leans in and gives Kinjiro a kiss, which causes him to get a severe nosebleed and black out. It is Masamune that finds him and wakes him up after getting a call from Kanade. Just as he is getting back onto his feet, a gust of wind blows Masamune's skirt up, and he catches a glance of her striped panties. She reflexively kicks him as hard as she can, which is good enough to shake him back to his senses, and he quickly resumes his pursuit of Subaru. Masamune gives him a ride on her scooter all the way to Kanada's family inn where he believes Subaru went. Just as he expected, he finds her sitting on the bench where they watch the fireworks from. The fact that she is no longer a butler is weighing heavily upon her, so Kinjiro reassures her that regardless of that, he will still be her friend. Although she is grateful for his words of comfort, Subaru does not want to return home tonight, so they decide to spend the night at the inn. Since the staff there does not know about Subaru's secret, they end up sharing the same room. After an awkward bath, the time comes for them to turn in, but neither of them can fall asleep in this situation, so they start chatting instead. Subaru decides to be bold and makes the first move, asking him if he wants to do more than kissing. This causes Kinjiro to start fantasizing about everything he could do with Subaru, and he ends up cursing his condition that is preventing him from having direct contact with her. Instead, he tells her to hold back for the time being, until both of them are ready to take the next step. Suddenly, Subaru crawls under his sheets and hugs him from behind. This excites Kinjiro too much, so she ends up knocking some sense into him instead. In the end, they go to sleep while holding hands, which is already pushing the limit of how much contact Kinjiro can handle. The following day, they return home. While Subaru is welcomed back by Kanade, Kurahat ends up pummeling Kinjiro for disappearing without a word. In school, Kanade shows up without Subaru, bringing the news that she transferred to another school. The news of Subaru leaving shocks everyone, especially the two fan clubs which revolve around her. However, Subaru ends up transferring into another class instead, showing up dressed as a girl and assuming the fake identity of Subaru's cousin just like before. She quickly groups up with Kurahat and Nakiru, who are now her new classmates. When Kinjiro runs into her in the hallway, he boldly asks Subaru to eat lunch with him, which shocks Kurahat, as this is the first time she has seen him interested in another girl. On the other hand, Masamune observes the situation in secret, wondering why Subaru is now running around dressed as a girl. Without Subaru around, Kanade relies on Kinjiro to help her out with everything she needs instead. During lunch break, Kinjiro manages to get some alone time with Subaru again. It is then that Subaru confesses that she wishes she could be Kanade's butler again. As it turns out, she realized just how lonely she is without her mistress around. Being a butler gave her purpose, which she feels empty without. After hearing her out, Kinjiro promises he will do something about it and heads into the headquarters of Subaru's fan clubs. There he manages to convince them to give him a hand in signing a petition for Subaru to be reinstated as Kanade's butler. Seeing that Subaru cannot help but be overcome with emotions, pretty much everyone in school signs the petition and they send it straight to Kanade's father. The following day, Subaru arrives at school together with Kanade, revealing that the petition was a success as she is serving again as Kanade's butler. After thanking everyone for their support, she reveals that her cousin transferred schools again. Everyone except for Masamune buys that excuse, who cannot help but wonder how everyone keeps falling for such an obvious lie. During the night, Kinjiro gets a phone call from Subaru, asking him to meet her in the park. When he arrives at the location, he sees Subaru dressed as a girl. She wants to thank him properly for what he did for her, not as a best friend butler, but as a girl. Just as he is being reluctant about it, Kanade jumps out from her cover and encourages Subaru to take the lead. Before Kinjiro can react, Subaru cups his cheeks and gives him a proper kiss, which ends up causing